Today we continue with our class Halachot of Brachot. Today's class number 20. And we start with Sefer Chafetz Chaim. And a big topic is the tail's constructive listening. Okay, and today's topic, matter of intent. While listening to negative information for constructive purpose, it is not a violation for prohibition against accepting Lashon Hara. Before taking the liberty of listening to such information, one must be sure that he will not be guilty of causing speaker to sin. So very interesting, very important. Let me read one more time and we're going to explain. While listening to the negative information for constructive purpose is not violation, violation of the prohibition against accepting Lashon Hara. So as we said before, in some cases, in some instances, you are allowed to listen, right? It's not violation of prohibition against accepting Lashon Hara. Just because you listen does not mean that you accept. Before taking the liberty of listening to such information, one must be sure that he will not be guilty of causing speaker to sin. So first of all, we have to understand if we're allowed to listen. Then maybe if we're not allowed, so by our listening anyway, we make possibly we make it this listening to sin. Basically, if I would say I'm not interested, so who he's going to talk to? We have seen that in order to convey pertinent information that would otherwise be considered Lashon Hara, several conditions must be met. For example, the speaker's intent must be to bring about positive result. So first of all, it could not be because person hates another person, he's bearing grudge and stuff like that. So it's only to bring over the positive result. So what would be the positive result? So maybe you're trying to help this person, the listener, right? Possible, the speaker. Or another possible scenario would be that you're trying to protect other people from harm based on the information that you're being presented. Okay, so that's a positive result. If the speaker does not have constructive intent, this speaker, he basically has no right to talk about it. His words are Lashon Hara, despite the fact the information is important for the listener to hear. So if he is saying this only to humiliate, let's say, somebody, so it's not positive intent, of course, and we are not allowed to hear, even though we need this information. In such a case, being a listener would be transgression of before the blind person do not place stumbling block. Vayikra 19:14. So basically, by us listening to the speaker, we facilitate his continue with his speech, which is 100% forbidden.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
But people, maybe some people are, it's mitzvah to hate maybe certain type of sinners.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah.
So, for example, people who make the masses to sin. So can I speak Lashon Hara about this kind of people because I hate them personally? But I hate them personally because they are a threat to Israel, for example, to a community, because they are known Russia.
I'm not sure if you take let me give you an example. For somebody is like missionary or something. This one for Israel, other regime. They are being born from Jewish mother, but they are pure Amalek. So probably the mother is not Jewish, but okay. So in this case, you're allowed to hate them because they confuse many Jewish people and many other non-Jewish people as well. So in this case, this person is taking himself out from the Jewish nation. You understand? So he put himself in that situation. So in this case, since he's a big sinner, you're allowed to talk about them negatively.
So the question would be.
One second, but it's not because you personally hate you. So our personal opinion should be put on the side. So because he is going against the Torah, and that should be the first priority. And they denigrate the glory of Hashem in this world. And whatever, as David says, right? David says, Hashem, whoever hates you, I hate them. So they hate Hashem, and I hate these people in the Torah. So it's not because me personally go against them. No, they go against Hashem, who I love, and I hate all of his enemies. So that's how this feeling of hatred would be kosher, but otherwise it's not. So if it's personal because they did something to you, but they as well going against Hashem, so it's not kosher attitude.
Because I mean, if my first motivation is because this X person did something bad to me, that's the main motivation.
That's the problem. That's what I just said. That's the problem.
So in that case, if my motivation is first, it also includes that this person is Mahdi, but my first motivation is not that.
But the second condition, you see, when you say it, it's a second condition. So the way I say it, it's not about me. It's about the glory of Hashem being the Shekhinah being humiliated with whatever they say. They mocking Hashem, right? And I hate them because they mock my Creator. So and then okay, so if you feeling as secondary, then yes. But if you feeling primary, that's the problem.
So in the end, are you allowed to talk permissible lashon hara about someone who is Mahdi Arabim, but also
it's not considered to be lashon hara to begin with.
Yes, but I ask because also I have another motivation because this person in particular made something bad to me.
Okay, so okay. If honor of Hashem comes first before your honor, then there is no problem. Let's put it this way.
And if in the inverse, how would it be?
In inverse is a problem. Is a big problem. So we have one of the 613 mitzvahs. We're not allowed to keep grudge and take a revenge. You understand? So before that, when this person insulted you, you don't have the opportunity. Now you have opportunity. You prepare, and then now you're taking revenge. You understand? And by the way, he also goes against Hashem. That's the problem.
Yes, I am talking exactly about that. How would you fix that issue?
So first, because he goes against Hashem, period. My feelings are irrelevant here. You understand?
So is there any specific way to turn this not so kosher lashon hara into a
exactly. So it's in your mind, your approach. So you say, I'm nothing. I'm servant of Hashem. So this guy or this lady, they insulted my master. That's it. So that's I'm not in the picture. I'm nothing. You understand? So and then you go fight all out war for Hashem, for his glory, for his honor. And that's a kosher fight. But otherwise it's not kosher fight. It's your arrogance, your ego is talking. You understand? So they offended me, and now I'm going to offend I'm going to crush him. And guess what? And by the way, he goes against Hashem also. So that's not a kosher way.
And is anywhere talk about when speaking to, for example, to your rabbi about X person, permissible lashon hara, is there any rule that requires you to first approach, not to say the name?
See, many times the name is irrelevant. So you for example, you tell me that his name is George, okay, but if his name would be Stephen, it would make any difference. So basically, many times the names are irrelevant. I still, the rabbi does not know who you're talking about, right? And many times, maybe you made a mistake. I'm not talking about you, but the person. Maybe he made a mistake, and now he speaks about that person. So he could have asked just general question. You understand? So if you ask the general, if you ask specific person, a question about specific person, let's say, right? So then this rabbi would have in his mind the specific name. Let's say he knows that person. Did it change the answer? Maybe yes, maybe no. You understand? So it depends on the situation if this name is relevant. So if it's a famous person or there's the person that he does know, so maybe it gives him it's going to be give a rabbi more information to decide how to resolve this information. That's a different story. But otherwise, don't provide extra information specific. I mean, about names or identification of this person if it's not that does not have anything to do with the case at hand. You understand? So basically, many times a rabbi is allowed to hear negative speech. Many times. You understand? But he has to be selective. Is it for constructive purpose? Constructive purpose would be like if we can help somebody. If you cannot help this person, I mean, why I'm listening.
I ask this because I always think, in my opinion, that maybe it's better the first approach when speaking permissible lashon hara, for example, to your rabbi, is to not say any names.
Exactly.
Yes, but if not
Exactly.
say, because it's like even though it's permissible lashon hara, it's like I feel not very comfortable saying the name of the person.
Okay, that's as I just said, many times this name is irrelevant. Does not make any difference to me. What's he's Steve or he's George.
Okay.
Okay, continue. Okay. If one is privately doing business with someone, and then by coincidence a friend begins speaking lashon hara about that very individual, one is required to interrupt him and walk away. Okay. Since the speaker is unaware that the listener is doing business with that person, the speaker is talking lashon hara must be stopped. After interrupting him, one may tell him that the information he had begun to relate may be important to the listener, and that he may continue speaking, provided that he can honestly relate it for constructive purpose only. Okay, so let's read it one more time and explain. It's very interesting twist in this story. Very interesting. So one more time. If one is privately doing business with someone else, and then by coincidence a friend begins speaking lashon hara about that very individual, one is required to interrupt the person, to interrupt him or walk away. So basically, if you have a business, I don't know, maybe he's one of my clients, whatever I'm doing, he's one more client. And now my friend is to start talking bad about this client. So he does not know that he's my client. It's an individual that lives in a neighborhood, let's say, right? So if he would know that he's my client, then it is maybe for constructive purpose, maybe, right? Let's say he sent this guy, he takes all of his all of the people that he does business with, or he takes all of them to court, try to sue them. Right? So if he would know that this person, my client, yes, it would be for a constructive purpose. Now he does not know. So I mean, what is the connection between me and that person who the speaker is talking about? There is no connection. So in this case, Chafetz Chaim said it is Lashon Hara. You have to interrupt it, stop him basically, or walk away. Continues. It's very interesting situation. I don't think we had ever this kind of situation. I don't think so. Since the speaker is unaware of that the listener is doing business with a person, the speaker is talking Lashon Hara and must be stopped. So basically, in this, if he would know that person, that if speaker would know that the person about whom he was talking is my client, it would be for constructive purpose. Since he does not know, it's not for constructive purpose. That's why I must stop him. After interrupting him, one may tell him the information that he began to relate may be important to the listener. So now we stop him and say, you know what, actually, you know what, this person is my client. Okay, so be careful. What are you going to tell me about it, right? One more time. After interrupting him, one may tell him the information he had begun to relate may be important to the listener, and that he may continue speaking, provided that he can honestly relate it for a constructive purpose only. So now you say, okay, whatever you're going to say now, it's going to be for a constructive purpose. But that person, the speaker, must know that it's for constructive purpose. Very interesting. Stop here. So we go to Shulchan Aruch, and the Siman is 168, same Siman, and topic is over which bread is to make blessing. Okay, and we're up to the sieve number 10. So it says the ruling with respect to the crumbs bowl. Okay, there's a bits of bread stuck together by means of the broth. Okay, and etc. is follows. If the individual bits, so like crumbs, and they got stuck together with the broth. Okay, if the individual bits were boiled, then if they are as large as an olive, one must make over them the blessing hamotzi, and the blessing after the meal, meaning birchas hamazon. After, even if they do not have the appearance of the bread. So of course, I mean, after boiling, it's like the bowl, right? I mean, they stuck together. No, they were cooked. Okay, so this bowl was cooked. Okay. However, if they do not as large as an olive, so we're talking about crumbs that stuck together, not as large as an olive, then even though they seem to have the appearance of bread, one must not make over them the blessing of hamotzi. So because it's too small. So whatever is olive size, as we said, it's 1 ounce, approximately 28 grams. That's important. Less than that, as we said before, we don't make after blessing. Right? So because why? Because it's not enough to get any satiation from this amount of food. So right. But if it's more than kizayis or more, so he said the blessing hamotzi, and the blessing after the meal. But the blessing baremine mizoinus, I mean not, but baremine mizoinus, because so this bread, since it was boiled and it's too small, so he said like on a cake, and a single blessing which corresponds to the blessing after the meal. 3 blessings after the meal. Okay. If the individual bits of bread were not boiled, right, not boiled, but are joined to each other by the means of honey or broth, so they were not cooked, right? They were just joined with a honey or broth. Then, if the bits are large as an olive, so meaning like kizai is this 28 grams, one should make the blessing hamotzi over them, so meaning not cooked, even if they do not have the appearance of the bread. Okay, so that's the huge difference. However, if they are not as large as olive, then if they have appearance of bread, not large bread, one second, minute. So one more time. However, if they are not as large as an olive, then if they have the appearance of the bread, there is if it is evident evident and obvious that they are bread, one must make the blessing of hamotzi. So as we said, if it's bread and it was not cooked and it's like little pieces, we still say hamotzi. And the blessing for after the meal. But if they do not have the appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing of Borei Minei Mizonos and single blessing, which corresponds to 3 blessings after the meal. If the bits of bread are neither boiled nor joined together, so crumbs, regular crumbs, but merely breadcrumbs, bread crumbled into very tiny bits, then although the pieces are not as large as olive and do not have the appearance of bread, one must nevertheless make the blessing hamotzi on the blessing and the blessing after the meal. So I mean, if he ate enough of these crumbs, of course. So I mean, they're not stuck together. A lot of crumbs. He ate enough. Has to make hamotzi and Birchas Hamazon. Okay. See below section 184. We didn't get to it. Paragraph 6. How much one must eat in order to become obligated to make the blessing for after the meal over it. Okay, so it was very long, as you can see, very long sieve. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. We do Mishnah Brura and all the commentaries that are necessary. Okay, so from the beginning. The rule with respect to the crumbs balls. Crumbs balls. Okay, so what does it mean, crumbs balls? Mishnah Brura 49. Crumbs balls, etc. I will give a following introduction to this paragraph. There are 3 different cases involved here. Okay. Number 1, the bread was broken into bits and then boiled. The ruling is dependent on the circumstances. Okay. So first, the bread was broken. So it was bread. First, it was baked. Right? That's what we call bread. Now it was broken in pieces. We still didn't say big pieces or small pieces. Large pieces or small, we didn't say. Okay. And then these pieces were boiled. So it's first scenario. Okay. If the bits are as large as olives, meaning they're boiled, right? Maybe cooked, right? And cooked in water, and the big pieces, large as olive. They will not have lost their classification as bread because they were boiled, even if they no longer have appearance of the bread. I'm not sure why would they not have appearance of bread. Maybe because it's absorbed all of the water. I'm not sure. Maybe that's the reason, right? So, but one more time, bread, they were broken in pieces, and one more time, if the bits are as large as olive, so being kizais, they will not have lost their classification of bread because they were boiled, even if they no longer have the appearance of the bread. So basically, they don't appear as a bread, don't look like a bread, but because of the size, the size in this case makes the difference, even though they don't look as a bread. Okay. I'm not sure, like maybe they change color because of the, if they were boiled in a soup. I'm not sure where exactly did they boil it. Okay. However, if they are not, but we're talking about the case in general, right? You can boil in water, you can boil in soup, in any liquid. Okay. However, if they are not as large as olive, then even if they seem to have appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing Borei Minei Mizonos over them, since they are now classed as a boiled food. Okay. So it's a Mishnah Brura is very, very precise, very, very beautiful explanation. So we said before that on all of the boiled foods, on all of the boiled things, like foods, right? The foods that are made from 5 species of grain. So we say Borei Minei Mizonos. So on all the spaghettis, on all of the raviolis, on all of these other foods, right? Whatever else they boil, right? They cook. So we say Borei Minei Mizonos. So now there are 2 situations in with the bread. First, it was baked, right? So with spaghetti, let's say with pasta, it was never baked, right? But here it's a different. It was bread that was baked. Now he broke it into pieces. If the pieces are big, large enough, right? Larger than kizayis are larger. So then it is bread, even though it does not look like bread. So we say on this, we go wash our hands, and we say chamotzi and birchas hamazon. But if these pieces are less than bread, smaller than kizayis, smaller than kizayis, even they look like bread. So we say Borei Minei Mizonos. That's the first scenario. Okay. Scenario number 2. If one did not boil the bread, but merely broke up in a bowl, and the bits are joined together by the means of honey or broth, then if the bits are still have appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing of hamotzi over them, even if they are not as large as olive. However, if the bits do not have the appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing Borei Minei Mizonos over them, unless they are as large as olive, in which case one must make the blessing hamotzi, as stated previously, with respect to the bits of bread that were boiled. Okay, so let's try to read it again, and now it became much clearer. So what is much clear? So in the first scenario, we actually boiled these pieces of bread, right? We cooked them. Now in the second scenario, we don't cook them. We just broke this bread, right, in smaller pieces, and merely broken in the pieces and bits, and joined them together with the broth, right? So they use broth or honey to join them together. So they might look like bread and might not look like a bread, right? Okay. So first scenario, first case, I would say in this scenario, if the bits still have appearance of the bread, one must make the blessing of hamotzi. Just 1 second. Do we say that it's larger than kizayis? Join honey and broth. Then the bits still have the. Okay, so no, that does not matter. So meaning does not matter if they're bigger than kizayis or smaller than kizayis. So since they have these pieces have appearance of the bread, we say hamotzi. As we said, and in the end, I mean, even on small crumbs that are not joined together, but you see that those are breadcrumbs. So you say hamotzi. That's what you say. Mm-hmm. Okay. So even though they were joined with the honey or broth, we say hamotzi. Okay. Even if they are not large as an olive, so it's clear. So if one more time, if he broke it in pieces and then joined them together by a broth or honey, right, or any other substance, I guess, for that matter, and even if they don't, they're not as large as olive, right, but they look like bread, so we say hamotzi. Okay. However, if the bits do not have the appearance of the bread, now for whatever reason they do not appear as the bread, they one must make barem nemizoines over them. So why? Because they don't look like bread, and they were joined together with these liquids, unless they're as large as the olive. Okay, so now if they look like bread, right? If they don't look like bread after joining, but they as large as the olive, so we say hamotzi. But if they don't look like bread and they're less than the olive size, so we say barem nemizoines. In which case one must make the blessing on hamotzi, as we said, stated previously with respect to the bits of bread, they are boiled. So here we don't have water, it's bread, one more time, joined together with honey or broth. Then bits and pieces still appearing as a bread. One must make hamotzi over them, even if they not as large as olive. So that's the thing, because they look like bread. Okay, if they do not look like bread, we say mizoines, unless it is a large piece, larger than olive. Okay. Okay. Third scenario: if one did not boil the bits of bread, and the bits are not joined together, so he just make crumbs, bread crumbs, right? Joined together by the means of the liquid ether. So just separate pieces of bread. Then even if the bits are as fine as a sifted flour, one should make the blessing hamotzi over them, since they are still classed as bread. We'll now explain in the paragraph, with the help of God, may he be blessed. So the first scenario is, I think we had to start with this. I'm not sure. I mean, but I'm sure what he put it in number 3. I mean, that's the straightforward way. So basically, it does not matter how big pieces are. If you crumb bread crumbs, doesn't matter. Big ones, smaller ones, less than kizayis, more than kizayis doesn't make any difference. We say hamotzi. Hamotzi, and if he ate enough, so he says birchas hamazon. That's the thing. So one more time, 3 scenarios. One is broken in pieces and boiled. Second scenario, they just join together without boiling, right? And the third scenario, they just crumble the bread. Okay. So let's do the same sentence from the beginning. And it says, the ruling with respect to the crumbs balls, right? There's a bits of bread stuck together with the mean of the broth, etc. as follows. Okay, now of course, Mishnah Brura, in his brilliance, he just followed the Shulchan Aruch. That's Shulchan Aruch take this cooked bread as a first case. Okay, so Mishnah Brura says the bits of bread stuck together. If the bits were boiled, it makes no difference whether they stuck together or not. If they were boiled, the Shulchan Aruch only finds it necessary to speak of the bits of bread that are stuck together because the second case discussed, which refers to the bits of bread they were not boiled, meaning they were not boiled, but they were stuck together with broth or honey. Okay, so one more time the whole sentence of Shulchan Aruch. The rule with respect to the crumbs balls, there is the bits of bread stuck together by the means of broth is as follows. Okay, so stuck together is commentary. The same ruling applies if the bits of bread were merely soaked in broth, okay, for a long time until the water became white because of this. In such a case, they also have the same ruling as bits that were stuck together as stated below in paragraph 11. They stuck together while boiling. So one more time, this Mishnah Berurah will try to explain. The same ruling applies if the bits of bread were merely soaked in broth. Okay, merely soaked in broth. I mean, meaning that they were not cooked together, but merely soaked, okay, for a long time until the water became white because of this. In such a case, they also have the same ruling as the bits that stuck together, as stated below. Okay, so basically, in some cases, so they didn't have to boil; they just soaked in water for a longer time, and until, as they say, until the water changed the color. To make they took the color from the flour, I guess. Okay, so 1 second, let me see. What time is it? Okay, so we have time. Continue. If the individual bits are boiled, then if they are large as olive, one must make over them the blessing hamotzi and the blessing after the meal. Okay, so let's stop here and try to understand. If the individual bits boiled, then if they're large as olive, one must make over them hamotzi. So okay, so he boiled pieces of bread. If it's more than olive, 28 grams. So he says hamotzi. Okay. So Mishnah Berurah comments on individual pieces were boiled. There is, if one puts the bread in the first utensil while it was standing on the fire, or in any rate when it was when its contents still had a temperature of Yatzavedas bowl, so hot that the hand recoils on touching. So basically, here is it's very interesting. That's exactly what we will learn on Monday. You see how it's all interconnected. So that's definition of cooking. So the definition of cooking, we're talking about Kli Rishon, the first vessel. The first vessel, the definition, as we said on Monday, is a vessel, is a pot, let's say, that was on fire or in the black, but in this case on the fire. Here it's not about Shabbos. It's we try to establish what is a proper blessing before and after to make on this bread. So it's bread. Is it still bread? Considered bread, or it's left the category of bread and became something else? That's the question. So one more time, this Mishnah Berurah. There is if one puts the bread in first. So commentary says that the first utensil is a utensil which the food or liquid liquid it contains was cooked or cooking on fire, right? Meaning on direct fire, I guess. The second utensil is a utensil so it's which received the food or liquid from the first utensil. So as we were talking about, we discussed how to make coffee on Shabbos. So it's this tea urn is going not urn. This water urn would be your primary utensil, or tea kettle, or whatever it is, a pot in which you boil water is a primary utensil, and your cup would be secondary utensil, right? So even in secondary, it has, as we said, we covered. We said that there is if it's above Yatzavedas bowl, it has potential to cook. Okay, so one more time, since we have all this introduction, one more time the sentence. There is, if one puts the bread in the first utensil, meaning as we just explained, while it was standing on fire, at any rate when its contents still had the temperature of Yatzavedas bowl, so hot that the hand recoils on touch. So basically, it doesn't matter it's on fire or it's not on fire, it's going to cook, right? Because it's above Yatzla's bowl. However, if one puts food in a second utensil with a steaming hot content, this is not classed as cooking food, and the bits of bread which were put in a second utensil will therefore have the same ruling as the bits in the second case discussed in this paragraph. Okay, so let's try to understand before we continue what Mishnah Berurah is saying, that if we put the bread in the first utensil, right, meaning that was on a fire or was taken from the fire, right? So it's a clearly shown. So if the food, the liquid, let's say, the liquid in this clearly shown is above Yatzla's bowl, so it's going to be considered cooking. But if we transfer from that vessel to a secondary vessel, so so Mishnah Berurah is saying, so just so we know for our next Monday class, so Mishnah Berurah is saying that it cannot cook basically. So with a steaming hot content. So he said steaming hot, right? And so this is not classed as cooking the food. Okay. So it's 100%. It's very, very hot, but sits in a second utensil is not considered to be cooked. So that's what this author of that book, he took into consideration this ruling of Mishnah Berurah. But we're trying to go by most stringent opinion, and we say that basically it's still going to cook in a second utensil if the temperature, of course, is above Yatzla's bowl. Okay, so though we don't have the confusion, Mishnah Berurah say opposite opinion. Right, that food is not going to be cooked in a second vessel, even if the temperature is above Yatzla's bowl. And the ruling of this bread as a second case, where we discussed on the previous page, we said like bread was broken on small pieces and then joined together while it's dry, right? Or while it's not boiled. Okay. So one more time, 1 second. And the bits of bread they put in the second utensil will therefore have the same ruling as the bits in the second case discussed in this paragraph. That is, if they were have the appearance of bread, one must make the blessing hamotzi over them, even if they are smaller than the olive, right? So because we have to understand, it's, I mean, most of the time they would look like bread. What happened? I just broke a piece of bread, slice of bread on several pieces. They should look like bread, and it just because we connected these pieces maybe to give it different shape with a honey or with broth does not. I guess in most of the cases it's going to still look like bread. So even if it's less than kizayis, since it's what dry, not cooked, so we say that we say hamotzi, this blessing, even if they're smaller than olive size. Okay, why? Because they still look like bread. Okay, continue. This only applies if water in the second utensil did not become white because of the bread. Okay, but if the water did become white, as often happens when the bread is soaked in hot water, it is stated in paragraph 11 that in a view of this, bread will not be considered to have appearance of the bread. So very interesting, very interesting. So we're adding more details to the case. Okay. So the next detail is, right, the next detail is that even though it is second utensil, and according to Mishnah Berurah, they say it's not going to be considered cooking if you put these pieces of bread second utensil, on one hand. On another hand, if the water is going to change the color to white, that's it. It's going to be considered cooking. And forget about what we said before. It's not going to be bread because it was cooked bread. right? So if it does not look like bread, that's it. You say baraminemizonius. So let's read one more time just to make sure. That's what it says here. This only applies if the water of the second utensil did not become white because of the bread. But if the water did become white, as often happens when the bread is soaked in the hot water, it is as it is stated in paragraph 11, that the view of bread will not be considered to have appearance of the bread. So even though maybe it looks like bread, but because of the water, you say, okay, halachically it's not bread. Continue. If one puts bits of bread in a bowl and pours steaming water over them from the first utensil, the Achronim state that it is questionable whether the bits of bread are ruled as boiled or not. Okay, so let's read commentary, and it's actually exactly, you see, if you're paying attention to what we're saying, it's very, very similar of what we said about Shabbos kitchen, right? If you, as we said, if you pour from the first utensil, it's going to cook the contents of the food in a second utensil, right? So commentary is, this is because there is a dispute among the poskim as to whether or not steaming liquid poured from the first utensil without interruption is the stream will cook what it is poured onto. So basically without interruption, so this stream of the water that from the first utensil is connected, right? That's why it's saying without interruption. It is connected to the first utensil, and that's it. So it's capable of cooking. Consequently, if the bits of bread are not large as olive, so we're talking about when you pour it into the bowl from the first utensil, so they're not as large as olive, and have the appearance of bread, one should make the blessing of hamotzi over other bread first, and thus discharge his obligation with respect to the blessing over these bits of bread as well. So now Mishnah Brura is saying that we put ourselves in a questionable situation, right? And why? Let's read one more time, and we're going to explain. If one puts the bits of bread in a bowl and pours steaming water over them from first utensil, right? The Achronim state that it is questionable whether the bits of bread are ruled as a boil or not. So since there is a discussion, so some say it is bread, some say it is not bread because it will be poured from a second utensil, right? Consequently, if the bits of bread are not large as olive, so if they're large as olive, right, that's larger than olive, that's one story. But if they're not as large as olive and have the appearance of bread, one should make hamotzi, right? So if they look like bread, even not as large as olive, still we say hamotzi. Over the bread first, over the other bread first. Just one second. So if they look like bread, but small pieces, right? So since it is under dispute of the authorities, so we have to make the blessing on some bread that's 100% bread. I think if possible, maybe it would be a better solution in all of these questionable situations, right? Just to make actually, I'm not sure if it's a good solution, because if we have doubt, if maybe this rest of the bread that we eat, and maybe it's not halachic bread. So if you're going to make hamotzi on other bread, you have to eat kizais or even two kizaisim, just in case, right? To make sure that you cover everything. Okay, continue. So this actually continue, but the same sentence. If the individual bits were boiled, so we just discussed it, then if they are as large as olive, one must make of them blessing hamotzi, right? A blessing after the meal. So commentary, Mishnah Brura. If they are as large as olive, it is not necessary for all the bits to be large as olive. Interesting, right? Mishnah Brura. But even if one of the bits is large as olive, one must make over it the blessing of hamotzi and the blessing for after meal. That's it. So blessing of hamotzi, blessing after meal. Consequently, he may eat the other small bits as well without further blessing. In a view of the blessing is made over the large bits. So basically, like it's always the case. You make the blessing on a big piece, as we said before, right? In the beginning of this simon. So you're on the biggest piece if you don't have whole bread, and all other pieces are covered. So it's very interesting Mishnah Brura. So one more time the whole sentence, and we're going to get to the next Mishnah Brura. If the individual bits were boiled, then if they are as large as olive, right? Large as olive, they must make the blessing hamotzi. Commentary: as large as olive. There is the actual bit of bread over which one makes the blessing was large as olive before it was boiled. So it's very interesting observation. So of course, after it absorbed all of the water, it would be bigger. No, before it was boiled, it must have the volume of olive. And it was not reduced below the size through the boiling. So basically, it was olive size, right? This 28 grams before we boiled, and now even if we stop it's cooked, but it's remained intact. So meaning it still have kazais. One cannot combine a bit of bread with one bit of bread that are stuck together. One cannot combine. So even if they're stuck together, but they were like right? So separate pieces. These other bits are stuck together. Okay, continue. And consider it as large as olive because of the bulk that they combine. Okay, so it has to be like a bulk, as we said, of olive before it was cooked. Nor can one take into account the fact that the bit of bread, which did not have the size of olive, expanded because of the liquid, and give it ruling as a bit that is larger than that is large and olive, merely because it's a present age, present size. So I mean, maybe before they cooked, it was smaller size. Now it's absorbed all of the water, it's swelled, and it looks 7 times bigger. So which is not true. Continue. I mean, the whole sentence. Let's read the whole sentence and next Mishnah Brura. If the individual bits were boiled, then if they are as large as olive, one must make the blessing of hamotzi and the blessing after the meal, even if they do not have the appearance of the bread. So, but because it was big piece, so we still hamotzi and Birchas Hamazon. Commentary, Mishnah Brura. For in a view of the fact that they are large as the olive, they will not have forfeit the classification of bread because of the boiling, even though they do not have the appearance of the bread. So because of the size before the boiling, so if they don't look like a bread now, does not make any difference. So size in this case makes all of the difference. So in other cases, it does not. Right, as we said, if you like in a third scenario, we say even on crumbs, since they were not boiled, not stuck together, nothing. So you stay hamotzi. Continue. However, if they are not as large as olive, then even though they seem to have appearance of the bread, one must make over them the blessing. One must not make over them the blessing of hamotzi and after the meal. Okay, so let's try to understand. So now we're talking about the same case, the boiling pieces, and now they're not as large as olive, smaller pieces, and they still, even though they seem to have appearance of the bread. So commentary Mishnah Brura. For in a view of the fact that they are boiled, they are not considered to have appearance of the bread. That's it. So if only the only exception, as we said, it's only if it's above kizayis. If one did not boil the bits of bread in a pot, but fried them in a liquid, in a pan, it is implied by Magid Avraham in subparagraph 36 that this does not have the same ruling as boiling. Okay. Therefore, if the bits have appearance of the bread, it is of avail for them to be classed as bread. As a ruling below, as a rule below, with respect to the second case discussed in the paragraph. I apologize. It's a lot of technical details, but that's. I mean, we're going to do just so I know if it's so much. You think it's much for you? We're going to do only this sieve and we stop. We're not going to go. Only this siman, and we stop. Okay. Very technical, but what can we do? We have to use our brain for something productive, basically. Okay, so it's so one more time what we are talking about. However, if they're not as large as olive, right? Then even though the appearance of the bread, so we don't say hamotzi. Okay, but what Mishnah Brura says, for in view of the fact that they are boiled, they are not considered to have appearance of the bread. That's clear. Okay. Next, very interesting case that the different case, right, of Mishnah Avraham, right? So he say, not Mishnah, Magen Avraham. Sorry, Magen Avraham. If one did not boil the bits of bread in a pot, but fry them in a liquid, in a pan, as applied by Magid Avraham, right? That this does not have the same ruling as boiling. I mean, maybe he deep fried them in the oil, but it does not say. It says only in liquid, whatever liquid is it, right? So it's not considered to be boiling. Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe in liquid, but fried them with a liquid. Maybe when we say fry, maybe it's oil, always in oil. I mean, I don't think you can fry with water. Okay. So let's see. Therefore, if the bits have the appearance of the bread, it is available for them to be classed as bread. So even though, as I understand, so if the legs and kizayis, since they were fried in this manner, so we call them bread. As a rule below, with respect to the second case discussed in the paragraph. So the second case, just to remind, just when it was broken in pieces, bread was broken in pieces and then reconnected with the broth or with honey. However, in the opinion of the other Achranim, there is an argument. His argument is not conclusive. Okay. Consequently, it is proper to eat bits of bread that have been fried and have the appearance of the bread only if in the middle of the meal. Right, so meaning don't say hamotzi because not everybody agree on these fried pieces. On the other hand, all this applies only if the bits of bread are not as large as olive. But if one fried bits of bread that are large as olive, right, then even if they no longer have the appearance of the bread, it is self-understood that one should make the blessing hamotzi over them. This is rule above with respect to the boiled bits of bread, and it applies to all more if one fries them. So basically, we say it's the same rule. So if it's a bigger, the pieces are bigger than olive size. If they, of course, they were fried. If they were fried, they will still call them bread because even if we cook them, it would still be called bread. Okay, so let's see. Maybe we stop in soon. Okay. And make over this blessing hamotzi, so if it's big pieces, and the blessing after the meal. But if the right, so no, actually we're talking about smaller pieces. I apologize. Let me go back a little. However, if they are not as large as olive, I apologize, so it's smaller than olive, then even though they seem to have the appearance of the bread, one must not make over them the blessing of hamotzi, because they're less than olive, and they were boiled, right? And in this case, even fried, so it's still questionable. But what we say, baremine mizonis, or as a cookies or a spaghetti, right? And the single blessing, which corresponds to the 3 blessings after the meal. So 1 second, checking time. Okay, so let's stop here. Of course, we did not finish the series, but we covered a lot of ground. Okay, go ahead. Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you make several blessing in under 9 minutes?
Yes, several blessings on what? On the different kinds of foods?
For example, you eat some noodles and then you grab some cup of nice orange juice. You have to make. Do you need to make the shakol for the orange juice?
Of course. It could be. I give you a better example, right? So you have noodles and you have salad. So you start with the salad. No, I'm sorry. You start with the noodles. You say baremine mizonis on noodles. Then you say bareprichadama on salad. If you have a vegetable salad, and then you have a shechakol on the juice. Yeah, there you have 3 separate blessings, and then you want. What else you want? No, that's it. Okay.
But wouldn't it be many blessings maybe in vain?
No. It's not. It's not that way. One does not cover the other.
Oh.
So if you say baremine mizonis on these noodles, the potatoes that not potatoes, like cucumbers and tomatoes in your salad are not covered. You understand? They're not covered. And just because you say mizonis on this what is it on the noodles, orange juice is not covered. And even if you say on these cucumbers, let's say, it has nothing to do with orange juice. You understand? So the 3 separate blessings, because that's what we do. I give you a very interesting example. So today I had a piece of bread left over, and it's a small piece of bread that less than kizayis, for sure. It's less than kizayis. So if you eat less than, they say even not less than kizayis, but less than kibeitza, meaning double kizayis. So 56 grams, right? So if you eat such a small piece, right? So it does not cover all of the other foods that you're going to eat with this bread. You understand? So what I did, okay, so I wanted to eat noodles. Let's say I ate noodles, I ate salad, and I drank orange juice, let's say. Right? So I washed my hands, and I did not say blessing on the washing. Blessing on the washing, you say only if you're going to eat more than kizayis. But I knew for sure that I had also only small piece of bread like leftover. You understand? So I said hamotzi on the bread. So I started, of course, with the bread, of course. But then I said blessing on the noodles, and then on a salad, and on a drink where I have lemonade. You understand? So even though just because you eat in bread does not mean that this bread covers all other things.
So bread is not covering any food eaten after this?
No, because of the size. The size matter. The
But
size
if
was less than kibetza.
but if it was the over the size, is cover every
Yes,
other
yes,
food?
yes. In this case, yeah, it would cover everything that I mentioned. But if somebody wants to eat, I don't know, piece of chocolate, so the chocolate would not be covered. Or he wants to do a watermelon, so the watermelon is a dessert, it's not covered.
Not
Unless
covered with
it was
bread?
his meal. Yeah, go ahead.
Not covered with the bread blessing, you mean?
Yes. Yeah, because it's not part of the meal. So bread covers what is a normal standard part of the meal. So what is a normal standard part of the meal? You have salads, you have fish, you have meat, you have chicken, I don't know, some cereals and side dishes, whatever, all other things, the normal standard part of the meal. But sweets like pastries and candies and I don't know, fruits, they're extra. They're considered to be dessert. They're not part of the meal.
Okay, I have an off-topic question.
Okay, go ahead.
Are all the sons of Shem righteous?
Of Shem, all the sons of Shem righteous?
Yes, for example, Babylonians or Sumerians, Phoenicians.
Okay.
Are they all
They're
righteous or are considered goyim?
No, they're not righteous.
Because
they're Semites. I
yes,
understand. I mean,
yeah.
they're Semites, but they're not righteous.
So hasn't Shem a special blessing over all the other sons? Ham, the Ashkenaz, is there any special blessing over Shem?
Okay, he had the blessing, but it was like the blessing was went on only one line. You understand? Only Jews got that blessing.
So,
I mean, other nations also got their blessings, right? They got this. What is it? Yafeh. They got this beauty. So some of them got beauty, some of them military power, as we see what's going on in Europe right now. This Amalekim, right? Together with Esav, right? May mix Amalek with Ishmael and stuff like that. So that they got the blessing. So for them, that's the blessing. So for them to learn whatever we just learned. So some people say, I want to know what you learn. I tell them, if you attend my class for 15 minutes, you fall asleep, or you're going to think that all of us are crazy. Like adults would read these details. Why would you need that about the bread or other things that you learn? You understand? So some of the classes are simple, like introductory to Judaism, stuff like that. It's very interesting and like basic concept. But technical classes, these people would think that we're crazy. So for them, it's not a blessing. Whatever we do, trying to figure out Hashem's will, it's not a blessing for them. But to have a piece of steak is a big blessing. So blessing, it depends who you ask.
Okay, so in the end, a son of Shem, it may be as wicked as any other.
You have to understand that every person have a personal is a free choice. Whoever wants to be wicked, he's going to be wicked. Who wants to be righteous, he's going to be righteous. And Hashem is not stopping him from being wicked or righteous. So we cannot say that some like the whole nation, the whole peoples are cursed completely. It's not, maybe Ham, maybe like, but some of like I'm not sure who exactly came from Ham. I mean, some people from Africa, but not all of the people. Maybe all of the people. I'm not sure. Maybe they have a special, but you see the way they live in Africa is a curse, to say the least.
Yes, I mean, I was asking this because I wondered some time ago why the Babylonians were enemies of the Hebrews, if basically are the same people by DNA.
Oh, but you see, that's Nebuchadnezzar said when Hashem wanted him to attack Jerusalem. So he said, I know what are you doing. I know your ways, Hashem, right? He said, first you wanted to punish your nation, you send somebody, and then you punish that person. So Hashem always, since Jewish people are so important in this world, so in order to punish them, he's not going to send the lowly nation. He would say, as a respectful thing, he would respect the top nation. And that's what happened. The top nation of the world, these Babylonians were the top nation. They ruled the whole world. Then Greek exile, right? So Media and Persia, also they ruled the, I mean, it's Babylonia, including Babylonians, right? Or nothing, no, it's a second one, right? So also the top leaders of the world, then Greeks, then Romans also. I mean, they just a tool in the hands of Hashem. It's not like, I mean, of course that they had a free choice, but they chose because of the pride. They chose go against the people. And Hashem also always make these nations to punish the Jewish people. Unfortunately, they make them on top. Later on, they're going to throw them on the bottom, like you know what happened to Spain, right? Spain was a world power before they start expelling the Jews, and after they did, it's a decline. So now, I mean, where I live, they export, I don't know, olive oil. That's all they can produce. Some olives maybe, some other things, but nothing like very, very substantial. You know, from the world power to go to export only olive and olive oils, and it's not the best olive oil in the world, just so you know, right? And same as other Italy. We see what happened to Italy. Understand? So Hashem brings them up, they're going against the Jews, and he puts them very, very down. Go ahead.
For me, that's all for today.
Okay. No problem. All right. Any other questions? Or we start here? All right. So let's stop here. Time is good. So Baruch Hashem, it was a successful week. We didn't miss any day. And I wish everybody good Shabbos. And until Monday, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to do the Shabbos kitchen. B'ezrat Hashem.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Good job.